Hi, I'm Carol Hart from openheart.com, and today I have my dear friend Janna Baldridge-Vargas in the studio with me today.
Hi,
I'm so
thank
glad
you.
You're here. Janna is a multi-talented woman, and one of those talents is writing. She has written a book entitled The Promise of Death and The Passion of Life. And Janna, what can you tell us about this book?
Well, it's an exploration of death and loss and living fully, and using the reality that death is sort of promised to all of us. And the universal nature of grief and loss that we will all experience helps us to embrace life in a very full and complete way and live a very passionate existence.
Well, it is a fascinating read, and where can a person buy this book?
Probably the easiest way is on Amazon.com.
Awesome. Well, in addition to writing, Janna is also a multimedia artist, and you're here today to show us some of your collage techniques. Is that right?
That's right.
All right.
So today we're going to work with recycled or upcycled paper. I like to go through junk mail, catalogs, magazines, and pull out different graphics and elements, not necessarily art, but pictures of flooring, pictures of rugs, pictures of blinds, pieces of clothing, and cut them into interesting pieces and create another piece of art using these elements. And I always incorporate in relation to my writing and my thinking words that are of significance and meaning to me. So that is my medium that I'm working with today.
Well, I'm very excited to see your process, so why don't we get started?
Okay. Okay, today I'm working with a single piece of cardstock that came with these coordinating envelopes. A dear friend who's very generous shared this bounty with me, and I thought it was a really fun idea to make a more two-dimensional card than a three-dimensional card, even though there's texture and element. So we just have the single surface, but of course we have our message that's going to go on the back. You start with a variety of papers that you have culled from various, flyers and magazines, catalogs, dictionary definitions are really one of my favorite go-to things. I'll get the dictionaries at the dollar store and tear those out, vintage books, tear stuff out. So you've got different elements, and you start by what is called piling, and you put together literally a pile of papers that coordinates together until you have a cohesive sort of look and color theme. And you can see here today I've chosen largely greens because my base card was green, but we pick up some blue-green elements. And so you just start with your papers in place, and you take a wrinkle-free glue stick, because these are glossy pages from magazines and flyers, so they tend to be very thin and they could wrinkle rather easily. And you basically just start gluing your page, make it good and sticky.
Oh, wow. So you put the glue
right on the cardstock
and not on the paper.
Well, you initially do until you've covered that spot, and you just start randomly putting things on, smoothing them with your hand, and overlapping well beyond the boundary of the paper. And they then start to, create something interesting. I maybe want to go now. Now, of course, I've overlapped the paper here, so I'm going to want to put some right there as well. And just start covering my large areas.
So I notice you've got like mostly magazine pieces, flyers. Can you use tissue paper or just...
You can. Sure, you can use tissue paper, cut elements. This is a piece of actually, I believe it's scrapbooking type paper, so it's a little thicker. You know how it is, you're looking through a magazine and something catches your eye, like an interesting purse. And maybe you wouldn't buy the purse, but it's the texture and the elements that you're interested in. And those are fun things to tear out and use as part of your design element. So you can use anything, even bits of ribbon, tissue, napkins that are interesting. Anytime you're overlapping paper that's already there, you want to, which is why I use this glue stick, it gives me a little freedom to go ahead and lift up. And I also use a baby wipe because this is a glossy stock, so if you have a little excess glue, you can easily sort of get it out of your way. Get that down. And you just keep gluing till you have something interesting going on. And you're overlapping so far beyond the border, it's important to remember you're going to trim a lot of it off, and that's when it really takes shape. When you really have something different. Like this. A little cold in the studio, so the glue's spreading differently, but it's not a problem. And one of the reasons I like to go with the color that my base card is, if occasionally there's a little gap in that base card shows, that's actually kind of interesting looking, and so I deliberately stick with that.
Sure, it would add some dimension, wouldn't it?
It does. And the texture. So we're pretty much glued down now. I will take a little baby wipe and just make sure I don't have a really badly sticky element. I have a little ribbon and embellishment ideas, but we don't do that until we have trimmed off our excess. So we're pretty well stuck down now, and even stuck a little bit on our non-stick craft sheet, but that's not a problem because it's non-stick. We can just wipe it off. Get that clean. So you can see we have our card and we have all kinds of things. So we flip it over and we're looking at what we get to cut, and we use our non-stick scissors. And we just go ahead and we trim off our excess. I like to round the corners of my cards. They came with squared corners, but I always feel that it's easier to slide in and out of the envelope when it's bulked up with embellishment and a couple layers of paper and such, when those corners are rounded, and it just makes for a smoother little art piece. So not only you're sending a card or giving a card to somebody, but they're ending up with a small original piece of art that they could actually hang or have on a shelf, and I see that happen all the time. So I've got my pieces cut off, got my scraps cut off and set those aside, and voila, we really look different now because we have a border, we have some boundaries.
Oh yeah, rich color.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it's kind of fun. Now, I wanted to incorporate, I've got this little bit of black going on from this mosaic that I cut, a little bit of black in this piece of stained glass, so I thought this little bit of ribbon that I had might be interesting, and I think it is.
Oh, yeah.
So again, I will use my glue stick and just sort of run it across where I'm going to go and lay down a piece of ribbon. A lot of times the tissue tape you can buy that has some, or that it looks like notes or maps or interesting definitions, words, those work really well on these cards. And of course I flip back over and go ahead and trim my excess. A little bit too, there we go. Just very intriguing.
Yeah, that ribbon added a lot of focal interest, I think.
It also has dimension. We also lift up now, and of course I, as promised, like a word, and I have pre-done a word here, grateful. I decided this would just be a generic thank you card because we're always finding a reason to send a thank you to somebody when our lives are blessed like mine. So I've torn the definition for grateful out of a dictionary, inked up the edge a little bit, and ran it through a little Xyron, which makes, as you know, anything into a sticker, and it's particularly when you have a really jagged, delicate thing like this, it's nice to just have the whole thing inked. And you just pop that on there, and it becomes an interesting little comment without you really saying exactly what you're saying. Although I often will write out a sentiment, thank you, and cut the words apart and glue them on as well. But I like just doing a simple little definition like that: celebrate, memory, different things like that. And then I'm looking at it and trying to decide, different elements of embellishment that I think will be interesting. And I brought just a couple things along. I like to use metal. I might use brads sometimes, which is real easy to do. Of course, you just pierce and put your brads, and of course, we're going to put a backing on it to make this a really nice, thick, stiff card, and that would cover any brads.
Oh,
and
sure.
Today, I brought some different metal stick-on embellishments, which I really like to use from K & Company. And I think I'll just go with some of these bronze elements and just lay them on some interesting way. I always put some elements of embellishment, whether it be, ribbon, usually some metal, page pebbles work very well, because I want that texture. You're really a mixed media artist. You want multiple media in everything you're doing. Which is why I just make a point, and it just makes it very interesting.
That looks great, yeah.
Thanks. It just becomes something just a little bit different. I'm going to go ahead and throw on perhaps these little circles as well. That little bit of pop, just a little bit of something.
Dimension.
Thank you. Yeah. And you can go as crazy or not as you'd like. And I think I can. I've got some little squares I could add, I think, perhaps as well. You know how these can be. I like to keep both sizes of my nonstick scissors handy because, that one fell. Okay. Kind of less, whatever. I think that'll go back on there. Let's see. If not, if you have any problem with your adhesives, of course, glossy accents will do exactly what you need to hold metal, wood,
Totally love
Okay.
glossy accents.
Love glossy accents. Use it constantly. Okay, press. We're in a little bit of a cool studio, and that could be part of the reason. Oh, that one's just air into there. All right, now I've just got a few elements going on, making it interesting. I also have these interesting little already done sort of page pebbles that came also from K & Company that I thought were kind of interesting, and they're already raised, which makes it kind of sweet. That bird I thought was kind of neat, not only green, but it brings that blue-green element. And I take a pen and I've inked the edge of it just to make it just a little bit more finished. Yeah. Exactly. I'm not sure, you know, where. I think I like it. I think I like it up here. So, you know, you just find a little home for whatever you've decided. And we've got our surface done.
Well, that is just beautiful, Janna.
So, well,
I
thank
really
you.
like that.
Thank
so
you.
now, you've done this on cardstock. Can
Yes,
you
correct.
collage on other surfaces besides that?
Sure. Sure, of course, you know, there are elements in which you can collage on and then add your collage, for example, to this heart. You know, I've collaged onto a cardboard or piece of cardstock and then added it to the heart, which I painted and, you know, did some other elements to. You can collage on glass if you have the right medium for that, but certainly you can embellish other small things. Now, when you're finishing this, one thing I do like to do is add, like you might have used brads, and so you're going to have those brads showing on the back. So I like to get a nice coordinating background, and I put it through the Xyron that makes it sticky. It makes it fit really nicely. And I've already cut that. I'd go ahead and adhere that, so if I had a brad, it was well covered. And then I've also done my message, just a generic message. I run that through the Xyron, just makes it easy. Plus I love using these as little tiny palettes or little things to press down sticky things. So I save a lot of those and just reuse, and those are very handy. And I pop my message on the back, and there's space to go ahead and sign. And voila, you've got a nice little piece of art for someone.
It's just beautiful. It's just beautiful on both sides.
Well, thank you.
Great.
Thank you. So very simple, and a way to upcycle and use recycled materials and create new art out of other art that's already been formatted in a different way.
Well, Janna, thank you so much for coming today and sharing your techniques with us. And I hope that she has inspired all of you to collect some paper and start incorporating collage into your own artwork. If you'd like to learn more about Janna or myself, our addresses are at the bottom of the screen. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thanks.